All right. Quarter life clarity, Brian Valeriano. Let's go. I'm trying to make these episodes shorter. So if that felt like we're coming in a little bit hot today, yeah, we are. Because I'd love to be done with this in 20 minutes. And by now, you know if I succeeded or failed in that. Also, real quick, Friday episode, abnormal. I've been posting things on Mondays lately. That is because a little bit of a life update here. I am pursuing a career in becoming a firefighter. Yeah, crazy. So that came up a few weeks ago and thought about it a lot. And sometimes when something unexpected comes up, you just got to run with it. And that's what we're doing. So it's also cool because I don't have to give up on this stuff. Like, I don't have to stop building whatever the hell I'm trying to build here with Quarter Life Clarity. And it's going to be sick. Like, I'm pumped. Like, every single person I've talked to who has been a firefighter or is one says it's the best job in the world. So I'm pretty pumped about it. But anyways, I started an EMT class for it on Monday. It's about a month long. It's pretty intensive. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I will be posting episodes on Fridays for the next month or so. Anyways, I want to talk about probably the most basic ass question ever. But I'm going to give you guys a system that I've kind of used in my own life that's worked. But the question is, how do I make better decisions that get me closer to where I want to go and who I want to be? Super cliche question, very like life coaching, personal growth nonsense question. But I think this is obviously important. Everybody wants to get closer to who they are and or who they want to become and where they want to go and achieve their goals and all that stuff. And I think also what's cool about what I'm going to lay out for you guys today is you don't have to know exactly where you're going in order to do this process. And it's really not that hard. Okay. And so I want to start by sharing actually a story that John Mayer, a video of John Mayer explaining how he quit drinking. And I promise it ties into what we're talking about today. And side note, this is actually the video that I came across that really sparked the idea for me in 2025 to not drink, in case you didn't know that I did that. All right, let's do it. Oh, no. Hold on. Bear with me. We do not edit this podcast. Here we go.
Amazing last night of my life drinking story. It was Drake's 30th birthday party, and I made quite a fool of myself.
Really?
Oh, and it took me weeks to stop doing this every morning I woke up. And then I had a conversation with myself. And I remember where I was. It was like 6 days into the hangover. I was in my 6th day of the hangover. That's how big the hangover was. I looked out the window and I went, okay, John, what percentage of your potential would you like to have? Because if you say you'd like 60 and you'd like to spend the other 40% having fun, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But what percentage of what is available to you would you like to make happen? And there's no wrong answer. What is it? And I went, 100.
I want it all.
I said 100.
I want it all.
And then the voice in my head said, okay, do you know what that means? And I went, we don't have to talk anymore. I get it.
Let's go.
And that next year, I did 4 tours. I was in 2 bands.
Yep.
I was happy on airplanes. So what happens when you stop drinking? The level goes, it feels like boredom at first. But if you stick with it, the line straightens out and it goes kind of low, right? You're like, oh, I'm not having these high highs. But if you work, you can bring the whole line up.
Oh, so that last part is really the part I want to focus on. But also, I play a video from my phone like every single one of these podcasts by now. There's definitely an easier way to make that sound better, but hey, we're just going to roll with it for now. So for a second, I want you guys to visualize your happiness as like baseline, as like a chart, as a graph, like that line he referenced. And I think in a perfect world, I would say I would want my happiness or this level of joy to be consistently at about an 8, like a flat horizontal line at about an 8. Yes, I'd love a 10, but let's be a little bit realistic here. Flat, always at an 8, constant. And I know I've lived this in the past. I'm not perfect with this at all. It still happens for sure. But oftentimes it doesn't look like that, obviously. You can get like a 10, and then the next day you're like a 2 or an 8 or a 3. Like, it can be all over the place. And I want to pose the point that that is oftentimes because we're chasing short-term highs, such as, like, he used the example of alcohol. Yes, but I think there is way more than that. And so by now, everybody knows, like, dopamine. If you're listening to a podcast, you probably know that dopamine is like the brain's reward system. And so the problem is with cheap dopamine. And what that is your brain releasing dopamine, the happiness chemical, for something that you do minimal effort to get. So this is why, like, social media is not good for you. Like, you get dopamine from just swiping, from drinking, from, I would say, any, like, gambling, porn, like anything that makes you feel good from minimal effort is kind of the killer of this happiness. And I think what gets in the way of us having consistent joy. I hope that makes sense. But did a little bit of research on this, and just on cheap dopamine itself. I know I've lived this, and it said, this cheap dopamine results in a brain chemistry imbalance. So a massive spike followed by a crash. We've all heard that before. Often dipping below the baseline emotional state, which makes normal life feel unfulfilling. And I don't know, just to get a little bit vulnerable for a second. I've felt this. I've felt this plenty of times in my life where I've take a Friday night, for example, right? Super pumped about hanging out with my friends on a Friday night. And we get together and we smoke or take an edible or something, and we're drinking, and we got Zyn, so there's nicotine there. And we get takeout. It's a great dinner that I love. Like, I love, like, wings. Take wings, for an example, right? And then maybe we get Ben & Jerry's for dessert, and we have that. And maybe we're gambling on the game that's on, or we play college football. Just explaining to you guys what me and my friends sometimes do on Friday nights. But all of those things, yeah, I know there's some effort associated with, like, buying the alcohol or buying the food, but it's not much. And all of that stuff, again, personal experience, all of those short-term highs, you're at a 10 for a few hours. That dip happens. It happens afterwards. It happens on the drive home that night. It happens maybe the next morning. And to get even a little bit more vulnerable, in my own experience, say I do go home after a night like that, where it's short-term high after short-term high and just a lot of fun, I will want more. And so what will I do? I will grab for more nicotine, or you turn to the laptop or you turn to your phone and you watch porn. Did you notice 98% of guys have watched porn in the past 6 months? That is crazy. I was looking at, this is such a tangent, but I was looking at it before. What did it say? It said, porn is like the most common activity of men. That is crazy. And so, anyways, it's all of this. You guys are like, oh man, Brian, I didn't know we were talking about that today. It's like, yeah, I have no problem going there. And that's real. Like, I think a lot of people face that, again, because when you're constantly chasing short-term high and you stack them on top of each other, you're gonna crave more. And that is something that I've recognized in my own life, that was a problem, that I would just want more, and I couldn't really be fully content in those nights when I was hanging out with my friends. And anyways, it's a problem. And I think this whole cheap dopamine thing, I looked up some symptoms, which is, there's a shit ton here, but like the effect of chasing these cheap dopamine and short-term highs. Lack of motivation, poor concentration, no pleasure from previously enjoyed activities, impulsiveness, aggression, addiction, feeling sad and hopeless, lack of self-esteem, depression, anxiety. Physical symptoms include brain fog, muscle cramps, and stiffness. Didn't experience those. Loss of balance or coordination, also kind of weird. Memory problems, digestive issues, disturbed sleep, feeling tired and lethargic, moving or speaking slowly than usual, low sex drive. There's a shit ton of stuff there. All I'm saying is that cheap dopamine, again, things you do that release dopamine without effort. This is so different from like you get good dopamine from going to the gym or taking a cold shower or going for a walk or going for a run. Like things that you have to put effort into, that is a positive feedback loop. Whereas all the other things, the nicotine, the weed, the drugs, whatever, the porn, that's a negative feedback loop. And it's easy to get stuck in that. And so again, the solution that I want to pose here, 10 minutes, okay. Let's see if we can do this in under 20. A 3-step process to, right, how do I make better decisions that get me closer to where I want to go? And I promise this will all kind of tie together. I think step 1, kind of like John Mayer did, you got to evaluate where you're at. And I would say maybe ask yourself, what percentage have I been operating from? And what percentage of my potential do I want to operate from? What percentage of my potential do I want to reach? Like, think about that for a second. And I think another way to put that would be when you're 90, how much of your potential are you going to wish you reached? So take a second if you're driving or at the gym or whatever, wherever the hell you are right now. Think about like, what percentage of my potential do I want to reach? I will sit right here for a second. And don't just say 100 because that sounds cool. Like, what is the answer? For me, it was 100. For me, I did want 100%, okay? And I think a lot of people will say that, but do you actually mean it? So that's why, again, it's something to think about, but start there, because if you don't start there, there's no real expectation in terms of kind of helping out with this whole decision-making process. Step number 2, which I would say, honestly, if you leave with nothing from this podcast, leave with step number 2. So I would say find the stuff that moves you closer to 0%. This isn't all about finding the stuff and doing the stuff that pushes you to 100%. I think it's way easier to eliminate the things that pull you down to 0 instead of bringing you up to 100. And so the best way to do this, tying into the dopamine thing, is auditing how you feel after things. This is an absolute game changer in life. Is how do I feel after I do something? How do I feel after I binge Netflix for a few hours? How do I feel after I just scroll for 10, 20, 30 minutes or an hour, however long you have an addiction to your screen for? Hanging out with friends, hanging out with a group of people, certain conversations, the food you eat, the drinks you drink. Audit everything, and after it's over, whether, an hour after it's done or the next day, audit how you feel. Because that is going to show you also, again, going back to the dopamine, was there a crash? Was there a big dip in my joy, in my happiness, in my fulfillment, whatever? Did that happen? And I think if that's the case, then you probably may have filled yourself with cheap dopamine or something that pulled you closer to 0 instead of push you closer to 100%. And so a couple other things, like questions to ask yourself after, right? Do you feel better, worse, or the same? Again, after. Critical to do this after. In the moment when you're doing it, it's going to be great. It's probably going to be fun. And that's why, again, same thing with the dopamine, like you have to wait till after because that dip might happen. And if you haven't experienced that dip yet, then you can't judge it. Are you more energized or less energized? Do you wish you hadn't done that, or are you glad that you did? Okay, just a few questions to ask yourself. And honestly, like if you wake up on Sunday morning and you want to like crush the gym for the week or eat salads for a week or go to church and find Jesus, like the decisions you made on Saturday probably pulled you closer to zero. Okay. So that's step number 2. Again, if you leave with nothing, audit how you feel after things. It is an absolute game changer. And then step number 3 is I'm calling it making subtle swaps. So take that thing that is pulling you closer to zero, right? Let's take drinking for an example. Okay. If that's something that you deemed as pulling you closer to zero, then you kind of have to start saying no to it. Like, that's all roads lead back to saying no and actually having the discipline to limit yourself and set boundaries for the things that are getting in the way of whatever percentage you want to operate at. And it doesn't have to be this big monumental shift. Like, you can start very small. And just to give you guys a few examples that I've seen in my own life, before I give you those, I would say oftentimes, to make this even easier, oftentimes there is again, subtle swap. There is, okay, right next to drinking alcohol, maybe, okay, drinking 10 beers. I felt like shit afterwards. There might be a much lesser, or there might be an option right next to that pulls you closer to 100 versus pulls you down to 0. It could be just drinking 2 beers that night, or it could be drinking water. It could be having seltzer. But a few examples of mine that I've seen is, instead of laying on the couch, I'll go for a walk. Instead of binging Netflix, I'll read a book. Super simple one here. Instead of eating chips, eat almonds. Crazy. Scrolling on my phone while eating, instead, I'll listen to an audiobook or just sit in silence. Crazy thought. Going out and drinking is something that I just don't love to do. Definitely pulls me down. But you know what I love to do? I love sitting around a fire and hanging out with friends. So that's a subtle swap. Shout out Mikey right now. I know you're listening. Stay up till 3 a.m. playing college football. The subtle swap would just be stay up till midnight playing college football. So, like, I say that because it doesn't have to be this huge monumental shift. What I'm saying is you can cut back a little bit, start incredibly small. There is a subtle swap, I'm sure, that either maybe keeps you baseline or even pulls you closer to 100 versus drastically drops you down to 0 or makes you experience that cheap dopamine crash. And just on this note, like, there's a bunch of other things in the past year or so that I've just cut out of my life that I've realized is not actually really driving me closer to, again, I chose 100%. So that means sacrifices and things that maybe other people think are weird. Maybe you have to eliminate those. So for me, I deleted the ESPN app. I'm a huge sports fan, but I deleted the ESPN app because I found myself scrolling on there way too often, and it wasn't productive. It wasn't pulling me closer to 100%. It was just entertainment, things that I just didn't need to know. And so I got rid of that. That was a great decision. Nicotine is something that I've somewhat battled for the past few years, but honestly, that, especially in the past few months, has been very minimal. That certainly helps. I've cut out a lot of TV. One sneaky one, put your phone on the other side of the room before you go to bed. Like, I have kind of a strict rule of not bringing my phone into bed unless I'm like sick or something and I'm just chilling. But yeah, I think it's such a great way to get your ass out of bed in the morning and not fall into the habit of just mindlessly scrolling. Again, because for me, if I do that, I know I'm wasting time. It's not productive. And then I feel like shit afterwards because, Brian, you wasted time and that wasn't productive. Again, because I want to be the 100%. So again, just to review, getting closer to where you want to go. So many people, I think, would say that. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably kind of do in some regard. But I would say, again, step 1, start with what percentage of your potential do you want to reach? No wrong answers. Just be honest with yourself. Audit how you feel after you do anything, after you consume anything. How do you feel after? That will change your life by itself. And then what are the subtle swaps? What are the things that are sitting right next to something that might pull you down to 0 that could either keep you the same or drive you closer to reaching that 100% level or whatever level you want to reach? And again, what's cool about this is you don't have to know exactly where you're going in order to do this stuff. It's all about eliminating the stuff that you already know is kind of pulling you down. And a lot of this stuff is probably stuff that you already know, like all of it potentially. And so at the very least, I hope this episode was a reminder that it's, no one's going to do it for you is something that I say. No one's going to take responsibility for your life. You have to do it yourself. And I think, again, experiencing this stuff myself, it's a lot better place to be. And my baseline has certainly gone higher from a happiness standpoint by putting this stuff into action. So appreciate you guys listening. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, even like for the 20 of you or whatever that watch this, like, let me know what you want to hear. Let me know what struggles you're dealing with or what problems you have or what you'd love to know more about. Like, I want to create this podcast for the people that are consistently listening to it, whether you're a friend or you're someone that's found me that's just going through a hard time. I want to make stuff for the people that consistently show up. And also with that, I just want to say thank you for doing that. Thank you for supporting me in the show. I know it's not perfect. It's all work in progress, but I'm excited. I love doing this. Talk about things that energize you and all this stuff. Like, for the most part, unless I have a really shitty episode, I'm pretty fired up after I do these. So it's not all perfection. It's just doing it, getting the reps, and seeing what happens. So appreciate you guys, and have a great weekend. 21 minutes. All right. See ya. I gotta stop it now.